Useless, Todd muttered, tossing the book onto the table like it was garbage. I stared at him, my chest tightening. "What's this?" he said, gesturing dismissively toward the handmade scrapbook I'd spent weeks creating. "This is the best you could come up with? A pile of photos and sentimental junk? You're ridiculous, Lydia." My hands clenched in my lap, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I thought you'd appreciate something meaningful. It's a collection of memories, everything we've been through together." He rolled his eyes. "What we've been through? Please, I'm tired of all this overly emotional crap. You could have gotten me something useful, but instead, you waste time on this nonsense." It's embarrassing. I took a deep breath, trying to keep the sting of his words from showing on my face. "Todd, I know," he interrupted, standing up and running, a hand through his hair. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't working anymore. You're not working anymore. I need someone who can actually add value to my life, not drag me down with this pathetic attempt at being thoughtful." My stomach twisted. "What are you saying?" he smirked, crossing his arms. "I'm leaving you, Lydia. I've met someone else, Mara. She's 20, exciting, and actually knows how to have fun. Unlike you." His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see it. "And you think this is the right way to tell me after I put my heart into this?" He laughed a cold, dismissive sound. "Your heart? That's the problem, Lydia. You're all heart, no substance. I deserve more." I sat there for a moment, his words echoing in my mind, and then, to my own surprise, I started laughing. It wasn't bitter or forced, it was genuine, loud, and it cut through the tension in the room like a knife. "What's so funny?" Todd asked, narrowing his eyes. I stood still laughing and reached for the scrapbook. "You don't even know what you're walking away from," I said, flipping to the back page. "What are you talking about?" His voice held a trace of suspicion. Now, I pulled out the folded deed tucked into the last page and held it up. The deed to a vacation house I bought for us. I was going to surprise you tonight, but I guess that's off the table now." His jaw dropped. You bought a vacation house." I smiled sweetly, slipping the deed into my purse. "Looks like Mara won't be enjoying that, will she?" For the first time all evening, Todd was at a loss for words. "You bought a house," he finally stammered, his smug confidence crumbling. "Since when do you make decisions like that?" I tilted my head, my smile never wavering, since I realized I can't depend on you for anything meaningful. "Todd, while you were busy chasing excitement with a 20-year-old, I was building a future for us. Silly me for thinking we wanted the same things." He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, his eyes darting toward the scrapbook still on the table, like he was trying to figure out how this had slipped through his fingers. "You're overreacting," he said at last, though his voice lacked conviction. "This doesn't change anything. Mara and you?" I cut in, shaking my head. "Todd, I don't care. Take her. Take your exciting life and get out of mine. You've made it painfully clear where I stand." I walked out of the living room, into the bedroom we once shared, the sound of his sputtering excuses following me as I grabbed a small overnight bag. I could hear him pacing, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the situation without admitting he'd completely miscalculated. I paused, glancing at the photos on the dresser, our wedding pictures. trips we'd taken, moments that had once felt full of promise. Now, they felt like relics from another life. By the time I came back to the living room, Todd was at the door, arms crossed, trying to look composed. "You're really just going to leave?" he asked, incredulous. "I am," I said simply, brushing past him. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're being petty, Lydia. You'll regret this." I paused at the doorway and turned back. "Maybe. But at least I won't regret staying in a marriage where I'm nothing but a punchline to you." With that, I stepped outside, the cool night air against my face. Driving away, the deed tucked safely in my bag, I realized I wasn't just leaving with my belongings. I was leaving with something far more valuable. The clarity that I deserved better. Let Todd have his fun. I was done playing the loyal wife in his selfish little game. I drove straight to Grace's place. She was the only person I knew who'd understand without judgment. When she opened the door, she took one look at me and frowned. "What did he do this time?" "Can I come in?" I asked, my voice steady, but tired up. She stepped aside immediately. "Of course. Kitchen or living room?" "Kitchen," I said, knowing she'd already be reaching for the wine. Minutes later, we were seated at her small kitchen table, a glass of Merlot in front of me and her undivided attention across from me. "So," she said, leaning back in her chair, "spill." I took a deep breath and told her everything from the scrapbook to Todd's cruel words to his grand announcement about Mara. By the time I got to the part about the vacation house, her jaw had dropped. "He called you. Useless after everything you've done for him," she said, her voice rising with indignation. "And then had the nerve to tell you he's leaving for some 20-year-old. Are you kidding me?" I shook my head, swirling the wine in my glass. "Nope. That's Todd, so self-assured. Always thinking I'd just roll over and accept it." "But you didn't," Grace said, a smile breaking through her anger. "You walked out. You took back the house. And honestly, Lydia, good for you." Hearing her say it out loud made something shift inside me. I hadn't just walked away from Tadid, walked away from years of trying to be someone he could appreciate, someone who would never be enough. "What now?" Grace asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've been so wrapped up in making our marriage work, I don't even know who I am outside of it." Grace reached across the table, resting her hand over mine. "You figure it out one step at a time. But first, you stay here tonight. No arguing." I smiled. "Thanks, Grace." Later that night, lying on her couch, exhaustion finally caught up to me. But under the tiredness, there was something else. Relief. Todd was no longer my problem. For years, I'd bent over backward to make him happy. Now, I didn't have to. I didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long while, I was excited to find out. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating on the coffee table. Groaning, I reached for its 6 missed calls, 14 messages, all from Todd. Scrolling through them, I read, "Where did you go? We need to talk. You're being childish. You can't just walk away like this." That last one made me laugh bitterly. Walk away wasn't that exactly what he'd done the night before? Grace wandered in with a cup of coffee. "Let me get bingo," I muttered, holding up the phone. "He's losing it." "Well, what did he expect?" she said, setting the mug in front of me. "You don't get to treat someone like garbage and then act shocked when they stop putting up with it, I nodded, sipping the coffee. He's not used to consequences. He's always gotten away with everything, his arrogance, his selfishness, but this time, he's not getting what he wants. Damn right, he's not, Grace said, a satisfied grin spreading across her face. Later that day, another text came through, one that made my eyes narrow. I'll come by the house later. We need to sort this out. My house. He was still acting like it was his, like he had the right to come and go as he pleased. I thought about replying, telling him to stay away, but then I remembered something Grace had said the night before. Let him stew in it for a while. So I ignored the message, spending the day with Grace, instead running errands. Catching up on parts of my life I'd been neglecting for years. When I returned home that evening, Todd's car was already in the driveway. I parked on the street, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. He was pacing in the living room when I entered, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. You finally decided to show up, he said sharply. I live here, I replied calmly, setting my purse on the counter. What are you doing here? We need to talk, he said, his tone softening. This has gotten out of hand. I folded my arms, leaning against the counter. What's gotten out of hand, Todd? The fact that I finally stood up for myself, or that you're realizing Mara isn't the prize you thought she was. His jaw tightened. For a second, I thought he might explode. Instead, he sat down on the couch, running a hand through his hair. Look, I made a mistake, okay? I wasn't thinking clearly. But we can fix this. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping. Fix this, Todd. This isn't a broken vase. This is years of you taking me for granted, dismissing everything I do, and expecting me to smile through it. Lydia, he started, but I cut him off. No, you don't get to decide when we fix things. You made your choice now. You can live with it. Grabbing my bag, I walked upstairs, leaving him in stunned silence. The next day, I packed his things, left them neatly by the door, and changed the locks. When he came back that evening looking smug, I met him on the porch with a firm expression and a folder in my hand. What's this? He asked, glancing at the papers. Your things? I said, gesturing to the suitcase. And this? I held out the folder. Is my lawyer's contact information. You'll be hearing from her soon. His jaw clenched. You're being ridiculous. Lydia, you can't handle life without me. I smiled faintly. We'll see about that. Now get off my porch. He stared at me, his confidence faltering, then grabbed his suitcase and stalked off. Over the next 2 weeks, his absence felt like fresh air. The house was cleaner, quieter, a home instead of a battlefield. I threw myself into work, reconnected with friends, and leaned on Grace's constant support. Good riddance, she'd said when I told her I'd kicked him out. He was a leech, Lydia. You're better off. She was right. But at night, in the quiet, doubt sometimes crept in. Had I done the right thing? What if I regretted it? Those thoughts didn't last long, especially after the call from Todd. Lydia, he said, frustration in his voice. We need to talk. I sighed. What do you want, Todd? It's Mara, he said bitterly. She's gone? I couldn't help the small twitch at the corner of my mouth. Is that so? She laughed at me, he spat. Said I was pathetic. Said I threw away the only good thing I had. She couldn't believe I let you keep the house. Then she walked out. Now I was smiling openly. The house. I'm sure that stung. She said I was an idiot, a loser. And she's right. I made a huge mistake. Can we please talk? I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No, Todd. We have nothing to talk about. You made your bed now. Lie in it. Before he could answer, I hung up, letting the silence wrap around me like a warm blanket. For the first time, his downfall wasn't my burden.